Hey Goblin, you've been really practicing those war drums.
I'll bring the generic goblin noise!
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. They've got an amazing loyalty program and an easy-to-use and robust buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMudsta, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the Generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game features John, Matt, Arja, and myself battling it out. John has brought his enchanting Myrkul deck to the table and keeps Diabolic Intent, Arcane Signet, Teysa Karlov, Woodland Cemetery, Ghost Quarter, Phyrexian Tower, and a Plains. Matt has sold his soul to the devil to win a game, and he's playing Bel'akor, keeping Swamp, Wayfarer's Bauble, Archfiend of Despair, Graven Cairns, Swiftfoot Boots, Herald's Horn, and a Harvester of Souls. I'm just trying to take out the trash with Dihada, keeping Blood Crypt, Faithless Looting, Shinka the Bloodsoaked Keep, Wear and Tear, Dragonskull Summit, Plains, and Chromatic Lantern. Arja swears he just wants to pump up his opponent's creatures, and he's playing Eriette Auras, keeping 2 Swamps, 2 Plains, Danitha Capuchin Paragon, Dead Man's Chest, and a Soul Ring. John wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws, plays a Fabled Passage, cracks it, and passes. Matt plays a Swamp and casts Wayfarer's Bauble. I draw, play a Tap Blood Crypt, and pass. Arja plays a Swamp for turn and casts the turn 1 Soul Ring, passing after that. John's got a Fortified Village for turn, revealing a Plane so it comes in untapped. He then casts Arcane Signet and passes. Matt plays a Command Tower and cracks his Wayfarer's Bauble, going to find an island and passing to me. I play Dragonskull Summit and just pass. Arja plays a Plains and then casts Eriette. With her out, he passes. John's got a Woodland Cemetery for turn, and then casts Teysa Karlov. Matt plays his Graven Cairns and pays 3 for Heuristic Study. I draw and play a Plains. I then cast Chromatic Lantern, not paying the 1, and Matt gets to draw a card. Arja draws and plays a Swamp, and then casts Ghoulish Impetus on Teysa, and pays the 1 for Heuristic Study like a good boy. He then goes to combat, swinging Eriette at Matt for 2. He then moves to his end step, and drains us all for 1 with Eriette's end of turn trigger. John draws, playing a Phyrexian Tower for turn. He then plays Eldamri's Call and pays the extra 1 for the study tax, and goes to find Cave. Going to combat, John then hits Matt for 3 with Teysa, and passes. Matt's turn has him playing Reliquary Tower, and he then casts an Arcane Signet and a Herald's Horn, naming Demon as a Horn comes in. With nothing else, he passes. I draw and play Sulphurous Springs. I then fuse together a Wear and Tear and pay the Heuristic Study 1 to blow up Heuristic Study and the Herald's Horn, and pass to Arja after that. Arja draws and plays a Plains. He then plays Scourge Mark on Teysa, drawing a card as it enters. He follows up with Danitha Capuchin, and then casts Dead Man's Chest on Teysa as well. Arja then casts a Spirit Loop on Teysa, and then goes to combat. He hits Matt once more with Eriette for 2, and then moving to his end step, Eriette triggers, and we all get drained for 4, and Arja passes. John draws and plays a Plains. He then casts Gave, and goes to combat. Matt continues to get hit with the big Teysa, and with nothing else, John passes. Matt draws and plays a Swamp. He pays 6 mana for Harvester of Souls and passes to me. I draw and play Shinka, and then cast Dihada. I downticker and keep the Hall of Heliod's Generosity put into hand, and mill the rest, making 3 treasures. I follow up with a Mox Amber, and then a Rain in Riches, making 2 treasures and passing after that. Arja draws and plays a Swamp. He plays Sage's Reverie on Eriette, drawing 5 cards. and then follows that up with All That Glitters on Danitha, and moves to combat. Arja swings Danitha at Matt, and Eriette goes at me, and we both take our hits. Moving to his end step, Eriette then drains Arja's opponents for 6, and he gains 6, and Arja passes turn. John draws and plays a Vault of Champions. He then plays an Aura Shards, and activates Gabe by removing a +1/+1 counter to make a Saproling, and as it comes in, destroys my Rain and Riches. He then sacrifices Teysa for 2 black mana to the Phyrexian Tower, and Arja gets his Spirit Loop back, and we resolve the Dead Man's Chest trigger. John then uses the 2 black floating and sacrifices the Saproling token to cast and resolve a Diabolic Intent. Finding his card, John then passes, and Arja's Ghoulish Impetus moves onto the Harvester of Souls. Matt draws and plays a Verdant Catacombs. He then goes to combat and swings the Harvester at John, which has John responding by making a Saproling token with Gave. It comes in and destroys All That Glitters, and he then chumps blocks the Harvester. In his post-combat main phase, Matt then casts Liliana Dreadhorde General, down taking her to make us all sacrifice 2 creatures. John responds to this by making another Saproling token, and as it comes in, destroys Matt's Arcane Signet. And with that, the board is effectively wiped, and Matt gets to draw some cards from Liliana seeing creatures dying. With nothing else, Matt passes. I draw, and then play Hall of Heliod's Generosity, and pay 2 for an Orzhov Signet. I follow it up with a Faithless Looting, drawing 2 and discarding 2, and then uptick Dihada and pass turn. During my end step, Arja casts a Worldly Tutor from among John's Dead Man's Chest cards in exile, and this allows him to find and put to top SRAM. Arja draws and plays a Plains and then casts SRAM. He then casts Curse of Silence on John, naming Myrkul, and draws a card from SRAM. Arja then continues his Aura Train, putting the Spirit Loop onto SRAM, and then casts Farseek and Blood Artist from John's exiled cards, passing after finding a basic. John draws and plays a Ghost Quarter. He then plays a Devoted Druid and destroys the Curse of Silence with Aura Shards as it comes in. He then plays Anointed Procession. With nothing else, he passes to Matt. Matt draws and plays Temple of the False God. He plays out a Bel'akor and draws 1 and loses 1 as it comes in. And then plays Varagoth. This has him shooting SRAM with the Bel'akor trigger, and Arja gets a Blood Artist trigger, which he targets Matt with. Matt then follows up by upticking Liliana, making a zombie token, and passing. And I decide to activate my Hall of Heliod's Generosity to put the Rain of Riches back on top, and we move to my turn. I draw, and downtick Dihada, making 4 treasure tokens. I then recast the Rain and Riches, and I get 2 treasure tokens as it comes in. I then cast Beseech the Queen, cascading into a disappointing Painful Truths, but I still cast it, although I don't draw anything, so it goes to my graveyard. I then resolve the Beseech the Queen, revealing Return the Past and putting it to hand, and then pass to Arja. Arja draws and plays a Swamp. He recasts Eriette, and then plays a Grim Guardian, draining everyone for 1. Arja then recasts Spirit Loop on Bel'akor, draining everyone for 1 again. He then moves to his end step, and Eriette gets in on the draining action, draining all of his opponents for 1 as he passes turn. John draws and plays a tapped Temple of Silence, scrying 1. He then casts his commander, Myrkul, and as it comes in, destroys my Rain and Riches again. He then sacrifices the Devoted Druid to the Phyrexian Tower, and gets to exile the Druid. This has him making 1 enchantment copy, which is actually doubled because of the Anointed Procession, and Archer also gets a Blood Artist trigger, draining John for 1. John now has access to infinite green mana twice, and he uses 1 of the floating black mana to help cast Toxic Deluge, putting 5 life into it. This wipes away most of the board. Archer gets a lot of Blood Artist triggers, and fittingly puts them all into John for causing the board wipe. And despite having infinite green mana times 2, John has nothing to do with it, and has to pass. Matt draws and plays a Drowned Catacomb. He upticks Liliana once more, making a zombie token, and then casts Rakdos Signet. He follows up by recasting Bel'akor, drawing 1 and losing 1, and he then passes to me. On my upkeep, I once more put Rain of Riches on top of my library, and then draw it for turn. I then recast it, and make 2 more treasures, using some of the treasures to cast Return the Past. It has Cascade as a result, and I reveal until I hit a Reconstruct History, and this lets me get back Expedition Map, Demonic Tutor, and Wear and Tear. I then play the Tear half, destroying the Devoted Druid enchantment, and then flash it back again, destroying the second one. I wrap things up by casting Demonic Tutor, going to find a card, and passing to Arja. Arja draws and plays Agadeem's Awakening, putting 3 into the X. He gets SRAM and the Grim Guardian back, and then plays Rune of Mortality on Bel'akor. He follows up with a Spirit Loop and targets Matt's Zombie, draining everyone for 1 and passing. John draws and plays Smothering Tithe, but with nothing else, passes after that. Matt draws and plays Embodiment of Agony. He shoots the Grim Guardian with the Bel'akor trigger, and then plays Sulphur Falls once it's dead. Matt then upticks Liliana, making another zombie token, and plays Midnight Clock before moving to combat. Matt swings Bel'akor at Arja for 6, and Arja takes the hit, and Matt passes. I draw, and right off the bat cast Mana Geyser, casting Reiterate from my graveyard to copy it, but without paying the buyback. This gets me a bunch of red floating mana, of which 6 I use to cast Beseech the Queen for its colorless cost from my graveyard, and go and find Bonus Round. I then cast Bonus Round, and once it resolves, cast it again from my graveyard thanks to Return the Past. As it resolves, all subsequent instants and sorceries are now copied 3 times in addition to their original casting, and I then move to cast Urabrask. Responding to this, Matt casts a Chaos Warp, and he gets 3 copies in addition to the original, targeting his 2 zombie tokens, his Swamp, and his Rakdos Signet to see if he'll find anything relevant. He flips into Cathafed, which as it comes in, deals 6 to me, then Thran Dynamo, then Helm of the Host, and then a Stormcarved Coast. That's not much to help for him at this point, and I then move to cast a Jeska's Will, which I use to kill Matt immediately with the Urabrask trigger. I get more mana, and exile my top 3, and I then cast a Gilded Lotus, and tap it for 2 black. I then dump the rest of that remaining red mana into a huge Torrent of Hailfire, and get 3 extra copies of it, which secures me the win, and we move on to the next game. Game review time. This game was 57 minutes and 36 seconds, so chalk another win up for Dihada, the Mardu Spellslinging Master. A lot of people don't see this deck coming, and oftentimes are expecting something like Legendary Matters, which, I'm sorry, really isn't the basis of this deck. A lot of the legendary cards are mostly lands, so that means that I don't miss land drops with Dihada when down-ticking her, and some of the new cards in this deck have just been so good. Return to the Past is insane. It's very limited that it's only happening on my turn, and I tend to telegraph it pretty hard, but as you saw, it's just brutally effective. I love it. I also love Arja's Eriette deck. He drained at the table for like, I don't know, it felt like 20 plus damage. It was insane. That coupled with the fact that all the auras he's putting on everyone else's stuff is attacking his opponents means that life totals drop really quickly. So I'm sure a lot of people were wondering how John didn't just win as soon as he had 2 Devoted Druids out, and he even mentioned at the beginning of the game that he's not a huge fan of having infinite combos in this particular deck, and mostly all he wanted to do was turn cool creatures into enchantments and have fun. Matt's Demon deck also looked like it had a lot of fun, although with a commander that expensive and very little ramp, it took him a while to get there. I think if we'd had another turn or 2 around the table, things would have probably started turning his way, although his life total being so low with that Grim Guardian out meant that Matt was only 1 enchantment away from Arja from dying. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.